The Monster Club by Ronald Chetwynd-Hayes. Prologue. Donald MacLeod, despite his Scottish name, had a heart as big as the world, and in consequence a bank account much smaller than it should have been. He could not pass a matchmaker without buying most of his stock. Collectors for charity gravitated into his orbit like wasps to our jar of honey. Clergymen with belfries in need of repairs came to his door with outstretched hands, and begging letters formed a large part of his daily mail. Therefore, when the little man in the dirty raincoat fainted in the Charing Cross Road, he was the first, if not the only person, from the passing crowd, to offer assistance. He ran forward, knelt down on the damp pavement, and turned the little man over. A man with a much smaller heart might well have been revolted by what he saw. The little face was merely a skull covered in dead white skin. The lank hair looked like greasy cotton, and the large yellow teeth were chattering in the most alarming fashion. "How do you feel?" Donald inquired when the pale blue eyes opened and gave him a cold stare. A hoarse whisper seeped out from behind the yellow teeth. "Famished." Oh dear. Donald thought of restaurants, cafes, Lime's tea shops, then looked at the skeleton scarecrow on the pavement and thought again. "Look, you must come to my place." "Famished," the little man repeated. "Need nourishment." "Yes, I can see you do. We'll take a taxi, then I'll get you a meal." "Me mouth's dry." The little man, assisted by Donald, got shakily to his feet and eyed the passer-bys hungrily. "Me stomach's empty." Disgraceful! Donald glared at the prosperous-looking man who was staring at the little starveling with total disbelief. You talk about an affluent society, and here's a man who is near starvation. "Famished," the little man insisted. "Haven't had a sup for 2 weeks." "Taxi!" Donald's voice rang out like a clarion call. "Emergency! Taxi!" Donald helped the little man up the stairs into his top-floor flat, where he seated him into an armchair, before repairing with all haste to the kitchen. He heated up some hot pot left over from yesterday and opened a tin of creamed rice which had been strongly recommended on a television commercial only the week before. He then arranged this makeshift meal tastefully on a nice pink formica tray and carried it into the sitting room. The little man watched his approach with something less than enthusiasm. "Now," Donald said heartily, "set to... what should I call you?" "Aramis." The little man was looking at the steaming hot pot with marked distaste. "I don't think I could eat that." Donald nodded with understanding sympathy. "Naturally, when you have gone without food for such a long time, you will have to be careful. Some sip of the gravy and that will get your digestive juices working again." "I don't think you get the picture, Gov," Aramis said. "I can't keep solids down. This is not my scene. See?" "You mean," Donald frowned, "you have to live on slops?" Aramis appeared to be a little embarrassed. "Sort of. You could say I have to live off a special kind of slops. Red slops." "You mean..." Aramis nodded very slowly. "That's right, Gov. I'm a vampire." Donald regained consciousness some 20 minutes later and found that Aramis had thoughtfully put a wet towel round his head and poured a glass of whiskey down his throat. There was also a slight soreness on the left-hand side of his neck, and when he tentatively explored the area of discomfort, he discovered 2 minute punctures. Aramis was apologetic. "I hope you don't mind, Gov, but I only moistened me lips. Well, just this week. After all, you did invite me up for nourishment." "I do think you might have asked," Donald complained, as he clambered unsteadily to his feet and staggered to the nearest chair. "I mean to say, It's rather bad form to help yourself. The trouble is, Gav, Aramis did his best to explain. I find most people are backward in coming forward when they're asked to part with a drop of the red stuff. Greediness, really, because most of them have got more than they need. I'm of the opinion, Donald said with deep sincerity, that being a vampire is not a nice profession. In fact, if you will forgive me for saying so, it's disgusting. You don't have to tell me, Guff, Aramis exclaimed with much shaking of head. It's bloody horrible. There's no profit in being a vampire these days. I mean to say, put yourself in my place. Imagine a diet of blood, night after night, year after year. And don't think it's easy to come by. People are educated now. Not like when I first started out in this game. Educated? Donald expressed his surprise. In what way? Horror films. Aramis made a rude noise and screwed up his face into an expression of profound displeasure. They shouldn't be allowed. A gross betrayal of professional secrets. Taking the blood out of our mouths. He leaned forward and emphasized his indignation with shaking forefinger. Do you realise that every Tom, Dick and Harry now knows that 2 pieces of crossed wood is poison to us? And that business of running water. A very good friend of mine was lured into a shower bath by a wench who ought to have had her arse tanned. Another thing, whenever I kip down in me wooden overcoat, I can never be certain some knower won't get cracking with a sharp stake during me rest period. Donald's kind heart was greatly distressed by this account of tribulations suffered by a persecuted minority group, and he signified his sympathy with a deep sigh. I can quite understand your difficulties. On the other hand, blood is one of the few commodities that is not taxed these days, and naturally people are rather keen to hang on to it. I can't help feeling there is an excellent opening for a manufacturer who's prepared to can blood and sell it to you people at a handsome profit. Possibly some kind of supermarket would be in order. Then you could stroll around with a wire basket and purchase your needs. Aramis tried to smile, but due possibly to lack of practice, did not quite make it. That's a great idea, Guff. I like to say it's a treat to find someone who can see our point of view. Most people go all toffee nose whenever they find out my line of business. I appreciate your kindness, and so will my friends, whatever their afflictions. We all have our crosses to bear, Donald remarked sensuously. Aramis flinched. Please, Guff, I'd rather you didn't use that word. I do beg your pardon. Now, about your immediate needs. Sirrah, Guff. Aramis waved his hand. The little refresher you so kindly donated set me on my feet, so to speak, and I'll be able to get round to the club. There I'll be able to have my weekly ration. Club? Donald was aware of a certain lively curiosity. I was not aware that... Oh, yes, Aramis nodded. We dropouts have to be united, or we'd have been wiped out years ago. We've got what you might call a varied membership. Apart from my lot, there's werewolves, snake men, wasp women, stranded hadron monsters, ghouls, both common and king, a few of old Baron Frankenstein's not so successful experiment, one fly-by-night that got grounded by a broken wing, a jumpy Jim who's been looking for a virginal bareback for the past 20 years, and a thing from outer space that got left behind from a coronary party back in 57. Goodness gracious! Donald could not help shuddering, although he knew this could be interpreted as an impolite act towards his jest. You must have some jolly times. We do have the old rare get-togethers, Aramis agreed, especially around Christmas time. Tell you what, how would you like to come round some time? I don't know. Donald displayed reluctance, although he felt a certain fearful interest. Surely I wouldn't fit. I mean, I'm not a monster. Aramis made a hollow and what Donald could not only think of the graveyard chuckle. But you are, Guff. See it from our point of view. You eat meat and veg, apple pie and cream, you sleep at night, and walk about when the sun is blazing hot, and there's a lot of other unnatural things. There again, you got no horns I could see, nor scales, Pointed ears, fur, gills, fangs, snout, tails, talons, tusks. I say, begging your pardon, you're the biggest monster of us all. Let me take you along as a guest. If you like, I'll put you up to the committee as a prospective member. Donald experienced all the gratification that comes with one who is on the outside and has been invited to come in. That's really awfully kind of you. But won't it be too much bother? Aramis emitted a kind of bubbling cackle. Bother! You carry on, Gav. You'll be a feather in my cap, as the saying goes. Devil, love a duck and you'll be doing me a favour. If you put it that way, Donald found his curiosity outvoting his reluctance. I can't very well refuse. Then get your hat and coat, Aramis instructed. We'll be on our way. What? Now? No time like the present. Aramis got to his feet and rubbed his hands in joyful anticipation. The night is short and we vamps have a lot to live for the moment. There's a flippin' parson around my way, and I'll be willing to swear as his tabs on me. Hurry up, I'm famished again. The Monster Club was situated in Swallow Street, tucked unobtrusively between an oyster bar and a curry restaurant, and reached by means of a flight of ill-lit steps which ran down into a deep basement. Donald followed his host through a gloomy passage, round 2 or 3 corners, in and out of several doorways, and at length into a small, brightly lit reception hall. A tall, extremely thin man with a corpse-like face, who looked as if he might be Aramis's elder brother, stood behind the counter. He was staring at a notice board, which announced in large lead lettering, "In this club, all members are equal, be they of claw, talon, or fang, skin, fur, or scale, from grave, tomb, or laboratory, if they sliver, walk, or crawl, if they breathe, gasp, or do neither. No one monster will take precedence over another. Signed, Eat M. Ghoul, Honorary Second." "Evening, Theobald," Aramis greeted this sad-looking individual. "Still on the wagon?" Theobald nodded mournfully. "Afraid so. Ain't had so much as a nibble last week." He looked hopefully at Donald, and then asked in a low whisper, "What's all this, then? Brought your own dinner?" "No, this is my guest. Gov, meet my cousin Theobald. Like the rest of us vamps, he's down on his luck." "I am sorry," Donald commiserated, while gripping a cold, dead hand that seemed reluctant to part company with his own. "I do hope something turns up for you." "Thank you, sir." Theobald inclined his head, then turned to Aramis. "Got your ration book, Aramis? The committee has tightened up since the acute blood shortage." Aramis produced a very dingy brown book from his breast pocket, and Theobald snipped 3 coupons from a single page with a pair of nail scissors. In return, he handed him a red card. "Good for small 4 glasses." "Barely enough to keep skin and bone together," Aramis complained, pushing through a green brazed door. "When I think of the gallons I donated to the subscription in the past, it makes my fangs rattle." But Donald paid him little attention, being more concerned with the scene now before him. It was a large room, looking like an ordinary, fairly high-class restaurant. Tables were covered in snow-white cloths, gilt, high-backed chairs. There was even a small stage at one end, where a 3-man band was playing some low, blood-cooling music. The lighting was dim, which from Donald's point of view was just as well. The clientele was such to send a normal guest screaming from the room. He saw the hairy face, beetling brows of the werewolf, the long, mournful face and shrouded form of the common or graveyard ghoul, the square head, hulking body of the odd monster turned out from some mad scientist in his mountain laboratory, the solid stone mass of the golem, the writhing coils of the snake woman, the slimy tentacles of an awful-looking thing that might as well have strayed out of some black lagoon, and lots of other weird-looking creatures that would have been related to 2 or more of the predominant monsters. The vampire family seemed to provide all the staff. A cigarette girl, attired in a flimsy costume, bared her long-eyed teeth to a simmering smile. A waiter, resplendent in black, drawled, with his pupilless eyes lined on Donald's well-fleshed neck. As for the ancestral leader, he had a pair of fangs that jutted out over his lower lip and dimpled his chin. The waiter led them to a table situated in one corner, just to the left of the stage. There he handed Donald a menu that was divided into various sections, each catering for the needs and appetites of the different customers. The vampires fared very badly. Under the single item, 4 glasses per person, was the footnote, "Why not have part of your ration clotted and served with ice cream?" The Gauls came off best. Under the heading, meat dishes, Donald observed such tasty items as pickled carrion served with tombstone sauce, and graveyard stew, a must for the mosters. Werewolves are invited to grind your fangs on a virginal high bone, while marine monsters were offered long dead sailor in shipwreck gravy. Way at the bottom of the menu was a section headed Human Donators, and to this Donald found catered for his needs. He could order fish and chips, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, stewed tripe and onions, and much else that was guaranteed to replenish what has been taken, so you may donate again. He was a little uneasy regarding this instruction and drew his host's attention to it, but Aramis dismissed it with a wave of his hand. No need to worry about that, you're a guest. We vamps could come a long way since the days the old Count used to take his nourishment where he found it. You get stuck in wherever you fancy. If you care to donate afterwards, that's entirely up to you.
Aramis had his ration served with strawberry ice cream, and really one had to admit it did look most appetizing. Then he sat back and feasted his eyes on the various celebrities that were dining at nearby tables. Aramis drew his attention to a large, well-built lady with a square head, who was entertaining a number of odd-looking creatures who seemed to have been wrongly put together. One had hands sprouting from where his ears should have been, another had a superabundance of noses, one extremely large organ was flanked on either side by 2 smaller and misshapen ones. Yet another had a perpendicular row of ears running down either side of his decidedly long face. Even as Donald was about to frame a very intelligent question, the large lady proclaimed in a loud whisper, "Really, I cannot be held responsible for my grandfather's mistakes."
Baroness Frankenstein, Aramis whispered, the granddaughter of the great Baron and his own maid bride.
Donald said, "Oh!" and watched the Baroness with great interest, for he had followed her grandfather's amazing career on late-night cinema from early childhood.
"She is a very kind aunt," Aramis explained, and keeps what you might call a prioritary eye on her grandfather's little mishaps. She dines at me twice a year."
Donald would have asked some very pertinent questions had they not been interrupted by the arrival of one of the more strange-looking creatures that had aroused his curiosity from the moment he entered the dining room. Aramis made the introduction.
"Guff, this is Manfred, the were-vamp."
There was a mutual exchange of courtesies, and Manfred lowered himself into a chair and accepted an offering of a Bloody Mary, while Donald examined his really alarming appearance. He saw a long, deadly, white, and not unhandsome face, which was enhanced by the vampire's long eye-teeth, but here his resemblance to the blood-drinkers ended. The long matted hair, the taloned hands, and, in particular, the fur-covered tail, which had to be pushed through a special hole in the chair back when he sat down, all proclaimed descent from a werewolf. The large brown eyes were sad, as he downed the Bloody Mary in a single gulp, and Donald suspected he had been overindulging for some time.
"Manfred here has a problem," Aramis confided, "which is only to be expected when you think about it."
"I am sorry," said Donald, his compassion instantly aroused. "What exactly is his problem?" Well, it's like this, Aramis began, then with an unexpected delicacy nodded to Manfred. You tell him, Manfred. Briefly, the were-vamp spoke in a low, cultured voice. My mother was a vampire from a very good family, descended from the famous count, no less. But my father was a werewolf of frankly, and I'm no snob, of proletarian stock. In consequence, I have a split personality. One half of me wants to genteelly suck, while the other demands I chew like a common beast. It really is too much, and sometimes I think it would be well if I went out for a long walk in the bright sunlight. Now, Aramis admonished. That's no way to carry on. Try to look on the bright side. After all, you have the best of two worlds. When there's a blood shortage, you can raise the old hackles and go hunting. That's all very well, Manfred shook his head. But don't you realize that the werewolf side of me only manifests during the period of the full moon? For the rest of the time, I am a humvamp. Satan's knee breeches, Aramis swore. That's grim. In fact, that's the grimmest thing I've ever heard. It certainly is. Half the time I don't know if I want to suck 'em or kick 'em. They were interrupted by a ghoul who asked if they could kindly direct him to the gentleman's cloakroom. Manfred watched the retreating figure with some envy. At least he's got a trade, he complained. Donald's curiosity would not be denied, and at the risk of offending the afflicted creature opposite by a display of bad taste, he asked, Forgive me, but I was not aware that, how shall I put it, different species could marry. Could you tell me how your father and mother, well, got together? It's a long and sad story, Manfred said, wiping a tear-bright eye on the back of a hairy hand. That it is, Aramis nodded grimly. It's a story that I guarantee would make a statue weep. He's an orphan, you know. Oh dear. Yep. Aramis nodded again, but this time with gloomy satisfaction. His father was shot to death with a silver bullet by a little perisher who had been to see the werewolf of Hackney Wick. And his mother. You tell him, Manfred. A mad parson with a tent peg and a coal hammer. Which only bears out that my old dad used to tell me, Aramis stated. Son, he said, keep well away from parsons and Boy Scouts. A long silence followed this profound statement, and Donald used it to run his eye around the neighbouring tables and marvel afresh that such a collection of monsters could exist in modern swinging London and not be detected. Then he remembered some of the faces he had seen on the underground, and marvelled no more. Baroness Frankenstein was graciously listening to some anecdote being related by one of her grandfather's mishaps, and once interrupted to say, I understand the Baron's favourite expression was, back to the drawing board. He was abruptly brought back to his immediate surroundings by Manfred suddenly asking, Would you care to hear the story of my lamented parents? If it would not be too painful. Manfred sighed, and displayed the feigned reluctance of the practised raconteur. You don't want to be bored by my family misfortunes? Indeed I do, Donald said, and then realized that this was not perhaps the most tactful of answers. I would love to hear your story, so long as it does not cause you pain or embarrassment. Spit it out, Aramis invited, and don't balls about. The were-vamp sighed. Very well, if you insist. But do you think before I begin? Aramis waved to the long-toothed waiter. 2 Bloody Marys, tomato juice for the human donator. I will, stated Manfred after he had sipped from his glass, tell the story in the third person. This will make it more interesting, and after all, it is my father's story, not mine. And so, surrounded by members of the unique Monster Club, Donald sat back, nursed his drink, and listened to the story.